and raised my nephew as my son because my sister abandoned him. But now her daughter resents me for their poverty. When I 42F was 17, my sister Laura 46F was 21, and unexpectedly got pregnant with my nephew, Ethan. Laura and her boyfriend, now her husband, showed zero interest in raising Ethan. Heartbroken for him, I stepped in to care for Ethan. With the angelic support of our grandmother, Grandma watched over Ethan while I completed high school, and in exchange, I cooked and cleaned for her on weekends. My parents gave a meager $50 monthly for Ethan, which barely covered anything. Grandma and I were his sole caretakers. After I graduated, my family's tolerance for us ran out. My parents, Laura, and her boyfriend kicked me and Ethan out because they didn't want to deal with us anymore. Laura said she regretted ever having Ethan. Devastated but determined, I turned to Grandma, who helped me get legal custody of Ethan. Laura and her boyfriend signed away their parental rights without hesitation. From then on, Ethan became my son in every way that mattered. I lived with Grandma while attending community college and working part-time. She cared for Ethan until she passed away when he was 6, leaving 90% of her belongings to me in her will. This sparked a sudden reunion attempt from my family, but I quickly realized their interest was insincere. I made it clear they could either treat Ethan and me with respect or stay out of our lives. My dad made an effort, and now we're close. But my mom and I remain distant, although she treats Ethan kindly. By the time Ethan turned 8, both Laura and I were pregnant. Laura suddenly wanted Ethan back, planting poisonous ideas in his head that my husband and I would abandon him once our real son arrived. For context, my husband met Ethan when he was 5, and they bonded immediately. We married when Ethan was 7 and adopted him when he was 9. When Ethan came to us crying about Laura's lies, we reassured him that our love for him would never change. After this betrayal, I cut contact with Laura. As karma would have it, Laura and her husband struggled financially while my husband and I provided a stable, loving home for our boys. Laura's resentment grew over the years, and when her daughter, Chloe, became a teen, the jealousy spilled over. Chloe accused me of favoritism and demanded equal treatment. Even though Ethan is my son, and she's my niece, Ethan knows he's not my biological son, but he's my son in every way that matters. Chloe's entitlement, fueled by Laura's bitterness, has driven a wedge between us. Now, I'm grappling with maintaining boundaries while dealing with the fallout of my sister's choices and their consequences. Ethan knows he's not my biological son, but in every way that counts, he is my son. After that incident, I cut contact with Laura and her husband once again and focused on family and individual therapy for Ethan. When I gave birth to his younger brother, I made sure Ethan knew that our love for him was unchanged. About 2 years later, Laura tried to reconnect. I agreed to go low contact with her, with Ethan and my husband's approval. My husband and I live comfortably, while Laura and her husband often face financial struggles. My sons participate in extracurricular activities, receive the gifts they want, and enjoy a big family trip every summer. Meanwhile, Laura and her family can't afford much. When Chloe was about 9, Laura began pressuring me to pay for various things for her, claiming it was my responsibility. While I occasionally treated Chloe to gifts and outings, it was never close to how I treated my sons. Now, as my younger son Justin is turning 17, my husband and I discussed buying him an affordable starter car, just as we did for Ethan. At the same time, Chloe is also turning 17. Laura apparently promised Chloe a car but couldn't afford one and asked me to buy it instead. I refused, explaining it wasn't my responsibility. Laura was upset and stopped talking to me for a while. When Justin's 17th birthday arrived, we surprised him with his car. Days later, Chloe called me, crying and yelling, accusing me of hating her and asking why I wouldn't treat her the same as my son. I calmly explained that things were different. Ethan and Justin are my sons, while she is my niece. I told her my role as an aunt is to give her birthday and Christmas presents and be there for important moments, but nothing beyond that. I emphasized that Ethan and Justin would always mean more to me because they are my children. Chloe continued yelling and accused me of being unfair before hanging up. Laura later called, furious that I hadn't helped more, and blamed me for making her daughter upset. I pointed out that if she hadn't made promises she couldn't keep, this situation wouldn't exist. Over the next few days, I received calls from family members and Laura's friends, calling me selfish and unfair. While I felt some guilt because my kids grew up with more than Chloe, I didn't feel responsible for her situation. Update: 2 days after Chloe's call, I decided to meet her at a nearby park. When we met, Chloe seemed tired but calm. I told her I didn't mean to hurt her, but explained that I'm not her parent and can't take on that role. Chloe admitted she was jealous that Ethan and Justin seemed to have everything while she had very little. She said it wasn't fair that Ethan got lucky by being adopted into my family. She argued that as family, I should take care of her too. I told her she's part of my family, but she's not my child. Chloe started crying, claiming she deserved the same life as Ethan and Justin. I reassured her that Ethan and Justin don't get everything handed to them. They work hard, get good grades, and stay out of trouble. I reminded her that she also has value, but that her parents need to step up for her. Chloe seemed to understand but was still upset. Laura, however, hasn't let it go. I do care for Chloe, but she isn't my responsibility. I asked why she felt this way, and she said that while her parents take care of her, she feels like she's just an obligation to them. Seeing how Ethan and Justin were raised made her jealous, as in her eyes, we don't treat the boys like obligations. She thinks we're a family that sticks together, works through issues, and always helps each other. Though I stayed in her life and included her in outings, she admitted she felt second place, believing that since I took in Ethan, I should have had no problem doing the same for her. I explained that while I understood her feelings, I wasn't going to treat her like my child. I didn't raise her, but I do love her. I told her it was her parents' job to help her get a car, not mine. She got upset, accusing me of not caring about her, then left. Later, I texted her, explaining again that I cared for her but wasn't her mom, and it wasn't my responsibility. That evening, my husband and I decided to call Laura. I told her that my family and I were going fully no contact. Laura asked how I planned to stay in touch with Chloe, and I told her Chloe was almost an adult and could contact me if she wanted. Laura then demanded I buy Chloe a car. I refused, reminding her that she's Chloe's mother, and it's her job. After hanging up, I blocked her number. The next day, my mom called, suggesting I give Chloe money for a car. I refused and ended the call, knowing it would only lead to a fight. Later, I called Dad to explain everything, and he agreed I was right. A few days later, he called back, asking to visit. When he arrived, he was visibly upset. Mom had taken a significant sum from their retirement fund to give to Laura, leading to a massive argument. Dad packed a suitcase and stayed at a motel for a while. Now, I'm no contact with Laura and Mom, and I've decided to go low contact with Chloe. Update: a week later, I reached out to Chloe, and we agreed to meet at my house. I asked my family to step out so we could talk privately. When Chloe arrived, she looked upset. I offered her a hug, and she broke down crying. She apologized for her behavior, but I told her she didn't need to. I asked more about her parents. Chloe said her dad tries to spend time with her but works 2 jobs, while Laura is home more but keeps to herself. She admitted they argue often, mostly about money. I asked if she felt neglected. She said no but mentioned that family time was rare. Laura sometimes made her feel like an obligation, but Chloe believed they loved her. When I asked why she referred to Ethan as her brother, she admitted she hoped playing the brother card would guilt me into helping. I explained how I adopted Ethan, and she admitted her dad had told her the full truth, but Laura had sugar-coated it. I suggested a fun day out together, and she was thrilled. That weekend, we visited a restaurant Chloe had wanted to try, then went to a bookstore where I bought her some books she liked. When it was time for our second outing, I had to cancel because Justin was hospitalized after a bad asthma attack during football practice. I called Chloe that morning to explain, but before I could, she started yelling, accusing me of not caring, and hung up. I texted her about Justin's situation and promised to reschedule, but I didn't hear back. 2 days ago, while my family was out, my neighbor called, saying someone was vandalizing one of our cars. When we got home, the police were there, and Justin's car had scratches, dents, and broken windows. Security footage showed Chloe and another person vandalizing the car. My husband gave the footage to the police, and Chloe and her friend were arrested. The next morning, Laura and Mom came to my house, screaming that I was ruining Chloe's life and demanding I drop the charges. My husband is firm about not dropping them, and both Ethan and Justin agree. That's where things stand now.